Welcome to this morning's session on a Monday morning, bright Monday morning. I'm Louise from Cambridge Network. I was just saying earlier, my name is not technically Cambridge Network, but I obviously work here. I'm the events manager. And we're really pleased to welcome back Matt Harris to come and to talk about video again. And this time he's going to be joined by his colleague, Clark Chapman, who's going to talk about what to do with your video once you've made it. So we've been through all the technical stuff a few months ago. We're going to have a quick refresher on that, and then it's over to Clark, I think, to talk about the strategy.
Yes, welcome everybody. Thank you, Cambridge Network, for hosting us, for giving us the opportunity to do this. So today's kind of webinar is going to be myself and Matt talking video and strategy. So today's webinar is going to be broken into two sections. The first section is going to be Matt, who's going to be talking from a producer's perspective, talking about understanding the format of kind of using videos for social media, using videos particularly from an ad clip specifically, and the kind of processes behind it, the creative thinking. He's going to kind of delve into that a little bit, and then it will come to me in the second half, and I'll be talking from the strategist perspective, specifically using paid strategy and taking the videos with a paid kind of content aspect to them, and what you need to do. And then actually how important videos can be to enhance your sort of brand awareness. So Matt, I'll hand over to my esteemed colleague Matt to run the video section.
Thank you, Clark, and hello everyone. First and foremost, I think it's important to talk about what an ad clip is, or what we mean by an ad clip, and where it came from for us as a company and as an organization, and sort of more generally. So what do we mean? Basically, we're talking about short form video, which has been made specifically for social media platforms, which advertise a brand, a product, or a organization. And where this differs from things in the past is that before we were dealing with slightly longer sort of commercial video, things such as corporate promos, explainer videos, interview films. These would typically be about 3 or 5 minutes in length. And these would normally be positioned on YouTube or on a website and sort of sit there as a singular video, with the hope that these would generate more engagement, awareness, and all kinds of things. But when we talk about an ad clip, technical definition specifically is something that probably sits between about 10 seconds and 1 minute in length, so very short. And the idea is that it has a place in the sort of digital landscape, which is on social media feeds. That's not to say it's exclusively social media feeds, can sit on other video sharing platforms like YouTube, but we are thinking more in terms of LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the usual suspects, all ones which have ongoing feeds. And what's its purpose? Well, it has actually a kind of a very specific purpose. It's essentially a hook on the end of a line. It is a video which is short and designed to generate awareness for your brand, company, organization, or product. So it's not really designed to necessarily go to any huge extensive depth of meaning, but it is there to sort of represent you, have real impact, catch the eye of audiences, and draw their attention to you as a company on those social media platforms. And Sookio's clip culture. So what I'm going to talk about here is clip culture is actually a term now, phrase for this sort of evolution of video. And we can go back as far as the sort of 1980s, when we see channels on television such as MTV, VH1, using music video clips, music videos, as a way of getting audiences to buy music. And clip culture has sort of progressed and evolved. We go up through the 90s, we see more corporate engagement, we see shorter videos. We then go into the noughties and the arrival of the digital revolution, YouTube, Vimeo, and platform sharers such as video platform such as Facebook. We see that clip culture becomes even more prevalent with the user engagement. And now the commercial factors, corporations, are using that. So they're moving from longer form video to shorter. So by the time I arrived at Sookio in 2019, Sookio already had established video as a service and had been running it for some years, and doing quite sort of the traditional approach of the long form. But our in-house marketing was really picking up on clip culture at that time. And we have a marketing manager who had done this really, really good clip that everyone really liked, which was basically seeing a succession of Sookio business cards in her hand. So this is user-generated content, vertical video on the phone, one picture taken in various locations around Cambridge. And this clip goes on for about 20 seconds. And what's great about this clip is that it places us as a brand within a location. Really simple, really short, no wording, no messaging, ran out on Instagram, was really popular, got great qualitative and quantitative feedback from the matrix and from the metrics and the audiences. And so I set myself a task as a producer coming into this. If this is what everyone was really enjoying and liking to watch, maybe I should have a go at some short form video, because I'm used to going in and shooting big talking heads, interviews, and trying to condense them to, let's say, a 3-minute format. So then I was thinking, well, can I try and make something that says something about us as a company in less than a minute? And I created this one that basically promoted our services, which was video, audio, and studio services. And our copywriter, he wrote a script, which then I subsequently went and filmed and shot to publicize copywriting. And the rules were, we were to do this using visual imagery and sound effects. We weren't going to have any talking heads. This wasn't going to be the traditional approach. And here are the results. And what we found from them, we had really, really positive pickup. They were promoted organically. We literally just put them out onto our social media sites. We didn't put any paid behind them. And again, this is where Clark will come in a bit later and talk about the advantages to paid and what we've discovered over the last sort of 9 months with that. With clients, when we give them the idea about this, they like it a lot and they want to know more. And they do ask, what's a typical ad clip? Well, in terms of the technical spec, I think I've covered that. You know, the ad clip's got to be quite short and it's got to be considered for social media purposes. Whereas in terms of creative, there really isn't much we need to resist. I suppose those limitations come from that platform spec, which is all important. And that's where you really need to begin, is consider your platform spec. Where do you want your videos, your little ad clips, to be distributed and exhibited on? And through that platform spec, you will be able to create a parameter, whether it's going to be, you know, I mean, for example, we know that Instagram, if you're going to do the square stories, a video can be up to a minute in length, but it has to be much shorter if you're going to put it into Reels or Insta stories, sorry. So I would start with the platform spec. As a producer, you know, obviously we would talk to the client. You would then, Clark, say they want to run it on this, or I would advise them to run it on this particular platform, and I would work backwards from there and start filling in the creators at that point. I think it's also really important to make it eye-catching, which doesn't necessarily mean in your face. You'll have seen with the Sookio sizzlers, they're quite punchy, but that's because we're quite an upbeat and fun company. That's the sort of persona we want to portray ourselves as. Eye-catching doesn't always mean it has to be heavy on a beat or it has to be very punchy. And you'll see in a minute an example of an ad clip that we made for a client right at the start of this, which kind of is able to do that. We think is very eye-catchy, with it being actually quite a subtle video. And of course, consider audio, because some people do listen to clips. Obviously, when you're working at your desk and there's a news feed and clips are running up and down it, you probably don't have the audio on. But if it's eye-catching enough, people do tend to click the audio. If they're on public transport, they might be watching it and want to listen to it. So don't always dismiss the possibility of integrating audio into your ad clip. Now that could be sound effects, could be music, or it could be a soundbite. It could your ad clip could be a talking head, for example. This particular video, I think it's eye-catching. I think it draws interest from viewers when it plays in feeds, and yet it's quite a subtle and gentle piece. So in terms of the challenges, obviously telling the story is very difficult, because before, when you had a bit of space to tell a story, I mean, people found it quite challenging to be able to tell their brand organization's story in 3.5 minutes. So the challenge of telling it in maybe about 20 seconds is quite difficult. And I think there, what you've got to do, you can use obviously talking heads, but you can use a tonal approach. So you know, like with the Cambridge Trust one, I think that's all about tone and image and being able to convey a certain meaning and understanding of the brand through that. And by choosing on the tonality of the clip, I personally, as a creative, I think you're halfway there to gaining your audience's engagement and interest. So that also lends itself to picking images. This isn't just a simple sort of selection process and just sort of rummaging around and finding things that kind of work. It is about choosing those images that are probably going to either grab the eye of your audience or the interest of the audience most effectively. So, and in terms of messaging, always tricky. People get quite enthused with the idea of putting messaging on videos. This is, again, something traditionally we did a lot of. And it's always worth possibly having a call to action and your brand, but ad clips don't necessarily need to have a great deal of wording. And this is something, again, in the experimentation processes of Clark and I working on in-house and with clients, we've discovered, you know, our sort of feeling is we tend to keep messaging to a minimum on the video and save that for the ad sort of word description box. Yeah. And a good example of this was one that we actually did in the early part of the summer, which was for this company, Ascent. We did a selection, we did actual product videos that were shot in our studio. And these were very traditional product videos that showed all the sort of unique selling points of a particular product. And then we made a series of short ad clips so that they could lead back to that particular video. And we made this one. I was sort of tinkering with it and just playing around and just made a sort of kaleidoscopic animation with the brand on. And this kaleidoscopic animation is taken from an image of a product. And as I said, they absolutely loved this, this clip. Very little wording in comparison to the others in the series, and this is the one that people really find themselves gravitating towards and enjoying. We also have this one, which actually does have wording on it, and this is for our client Plex Tech, and they came up with this messaging, and they wanted it really simple. They just wanted to have brand colors with messaging on screen, and again, still works very effectively. So in terms of the benefits to using ad clips, there are plenty, because I suppose maybe some people would think, well, this is an oversimplification of video. You know, it's not doing what video used to do, but in fact, it's really enhancing it. Ad clips give you the quality and the quantity. We, and through my career before Sookio, often got approached and you get that phrase, we need a video. And in fact, what we've discovered, part of the problem of why clients and other producing videos don't necessarily get the full value back is because really they're only producing one. So they throw all their budget into the production of one, what we would now call a conversion video, a video that would sit on a web page where people come to and watch it and then read through and hopefully convert to some sale of services or product. Now, the problem with that is that you're really overweighing your video at that point, because that poor video has to, clients think that's going to be an impact video. It's going to generate awareness. Well, if it's just sitting on your website, which people were struggling to get to in the first place, then it's in the wrong place. So then, the idea that you could do these, you could cascade off those videos, you could extract 10 to 20 seconds clips from those longer formats and put them out on your social media feeds, means that you can draw people back to your conversion video. So it's not about making one video now, it's about getting quality and quantity. Adding specific value to a video. So like I just said, we now take the weight off the singular video and make video now a chain of communication, where you've got ad clips working specifically as impact and engagement and awareness, leading back to a conversion video, slightly longer in length, more of the traditional type of video we would usually do, something about 2.5 to 3 minutes these days, which is more, which would go into depth, great detail more. And this is great because it creates a funneling effect for video. So this is a really good process in order to drive, audiences from one place to another. Now you're directing them. And the great thing I think about paid is that, traditionally we'd do organic, but if you do paid, it's like now those small clips, there's a path that leads back to the conversion video. That path now becomes a travelator if you put some money in it. So you're not only just getting people back to that clip, you're getting them quicker to it. And I know, Clark, this is something you're very interested in, isn't it, in terms of the funneling and the linking of films. But I think one of the final benefit is that this allows for repurposing, because that Cambridge Trust video was from completely repurposed footage. That was from footage that had been, there were photography that had been taken before, both of the location and of the students at an event. So it gives an opportunity as well for you to repurpose and recycle some of the things that you've shot before in the past, which may have been for a specific reason. And you see this, companies, or I've seen this particularly, companies year in, year out, hiring you for this, to restart a project, because they've always thought video should have a specific value or a specific purpose. And instead, now, if you've got some of that footage, you just go and revisit it and see if there is something you can make, quite simply, that would, support your company or brand out there on social media platforms. And this video here, this is a really good example. We set ourselves a challenge of whether or not we could tell a story via ad clips. And this young lady here, she comes from a place of hardship. She managed to get a scholarship through the Cambridge Trust, and she went on to graduate with a law degree. And to tell her story, we've obviously recorded her interview, and it will be coming online soon. And you can listen to her whole interview and her whole story. And this then means that we can almost episodically build the story and have people intermittently finding these videos on social media feeds and going back to the Trust site where they can actually get the full story.
My English education was significantly disrupted by the political unrest in my country. Coming from such an area of instability, studying law felt like the right path for me. It gave me a sense of purpose, and it was empowering, as my personal experiences formed the basis of my academic interests.
There is an example where you can actually take a series of small clips and tell someone's really important and quite sensitive and empowering story. So just to recap throughout this, that is from the creative perspective, is to think strategically as well as creatively, look at the available resources, always consider platform spec, think about the quantity as well as the quality, and if you can cascade, if you can get this sort of small wave of films out there, and think about the journey, bringing us on to the second part of our talk, which is the strategy and getting the most out of your ad clips. So, Clark, over to you.
Brilliant. Yeah. So by now, Matt has gone through all the creative process and everything like that, which will really help kind of set you up to thinking, right, now we've got the video. Now, what do we actually do with it to get kind of the traction from it? Because what you don't want to do is spend all that time developing the video, all the creative, all the ideas, the team coming in, and then it just might sit on a website page and people don't see it, or it sometimes can sit on YouTube. And again, people aren't seeing it because YouTube is much more of a search engine in the sense of you have to optimize your channel, you have to optimize the videos to actually be successful. So this kind of now, I will go into the strategy about how you take that and use social media to actually develop it. So the dream combination bit there is relating to what Matt was saying earlier about taking these 2 to 3 minute videos you might have, or the longer form videos, and taking those videos and creating the much more smaller videos. So we had a client that wanted to take this particular one about climate change, and these were very high quality, really kind of nicely shot, but they wanted to promote the videos. And me and Matt kind of had these similar discussions what we've had today, and we thought, well, why not let's split the videos into smaller 30-second clips and run them as LinkedIn ads. We got 13,000 views, which is obviously that. So we kind of thought, yeah, this works actually. And I guarantee probably sitting on the YouTube channel, 13,000 views would probably take, from kind of a standing start, could take a year, 2 years to really get to that level. So you're getting so much more views in such a quicker time. This was just a 4-week campaign. So Matt, if you want to just play that one, that would be fantastic, please.
Understanding how climate change risks play out in the global economy is a complex business. Our global economic model, E3ME, maps the scale and distribution of climate-related risks across sectors and countries under different global temperature pathways and policy scenarios.
Brilliant. So again, it's taking that thing and condensing it down to make more videos of it, which you're going to get way more traction in terms of actually exposing your videos and exposing your brand as well. So first of all, so what I'll talk about now is importance of paid content. Why should I even bother spending any money on the content I'm putting out there? Well, particularly with social media, first, there's just more competition. There's more content, but you've got pretty much the same newsfeed space in a lot of ways. That means that's purely just basic economics. It's like how more people move to a place and they want to move and buy a house, the house prices naturally go up. It's kind of like that with newsfeed. It really is that real estate. So generally, because the social media users are up, you've got to get yourself, you've got to start paying to get in front of, particularly from business pages. If you're running this from business pages, because Facebook will, if it's, for example, Facebook, they will always favor the more kind of individuals using it for their personal, and then you can then get in front using the paid. And businesses are putting money into the platforms now. It's also important to think that social platforms themselves are now prioritizing paid content as well, because they're being optimized with the mobile first kind of design of that they are going video. And I'll discuss that later in a bit more detail, but the social platforms are going to video. So it's definitely the way to do. If you're going to do paid content, you have to be using video. And as I say, it's a surefire way to get in front of your audience eyeline. Also, there is the decline in organic traffic. So that is if you've got a business page, for example, and you've got 10,000 followers, you put a post out, 3, 4, 5% max will see that post initially. That means 95% of the people, even who have taken the action to follow you, don't see your content. So that's why, again, you have to be using that paid content to not only get in front of people beyond your audience who may not even know your brand, but on a lot of these social media platforms now, you have to spend money just to get in front of your own followers. So that's just something really to consider. 2 to 3% of post views that actually the people following your business pages actually see when you put it out. Obviously, as it gets a bit more traction, if it gets more engagement, that will go up. But as you can see, that's quite a chunk of your audience not seeing it. Paid content as well, because it's targeting. The information is placed in there by the individual user. They put it in there. It provides you a clear indication of their interest by the pages they like and comment on. It shows you the demographics, life events, all these things feed into the algorithm for the ad. So you know you're going to get your business, your brand in front of the exact people who fit in with that kind of audience personas that you've probably built over the years. I think as well, feedback loop. It's really important when thinking about paid content to think about, which is something, it's often kind of underrated, but I think paid content is a great opportunity to actually build an even more detailed picture about who your audience is. So I think often we have an idea of who our audience is, but through the testing of paid content, you can actually find that out. And we've seen that. We've seen in terms of, we might have an idea of who might engage with content, but actually there's a certain section of potential demographics we didn't really think about, but you could probably change your messaging or change your marketing messages depend on that. So that's another thing to really think about. And finally, for the importance, it's the metrics. There's a great quote by a guy called John Wanamaker. He was, I think he was like a famous philanthropist in the States and a politician back in the 1800s. So the guy was, and he was absolutely right. He said, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half. Well, the thing is, now you do know which half, because unlike traditional ads, you get consistent data to hone your campaign. You can get, as some of you who probably use social media ads now, you've got your engagement metrics. You can see the impressions. You can see the reach. How many people are actually seeing my content and my paid kind of content going out? What's actually happening? Are there click-through rate? Are they going through to my website? And then what's brilliant about that, linking in with the videos that Matt's talked about, it means you can pivot quite quickly to change messages based on that. So that's one of the massive things to consider. And just a quick one on metrics, but always be thinking you're referencing your data. So just because you've got something that's really high engagement, if it's negative engagement, that's probably not a good thing as well. So the numbers, you have to really delve into the numbers a bit as well. So yeah, so as a recap on that, really, for the importance of it is the increasing competition across social media platforms is massively that newsfeed real estate. There's a huge decline in organic traffic, which is making it really, really important to think about paid. It's very targeted. People are using it every day. It's their lives. It's what they use. The feedback loops. So use the ads to really build a better understanding of your audience. And then, and the consistent data that's coming through on a daily basis is really helpful to help you pivot those messages. Thanks, Matt. So so now, if you were to thinking, right, so I'm interested in doing this, what do I have to think about before I actually go and run a campaign? Well, first of all, audience. It goes without saying you've got to have an idea of your audience, the who, the what's, the where's, the when's, all the standard things. But that should really provide you with a starting point. My advice is don't be too targeted on the idea of what you think is the absolute perfect customer, because what you want to do is use the ads to try and help provide data about potential other audiences as well. So you absolutely have to be targeted to a certain extent, but don't be so targeted when you start the campaign. Narrow in rather than narrow out, but that's just my kind of way of what we see works in getting that data. Also, when setting up, think about the platform. Age is a massive one when it comes to platforms. For example, if you're running an ad campaign for 14 to 18-year-olds, you pretty much wouldn't put it on Facebook because they're not using the platform. So you have to consider those things. Are my audience actually going to be on this platform? Also, it's really important to think about the mindset of the person when they're actually on that social media platform. When I use LinkedIn, I'm in a very different mindset than when I'm using Facebook, when I'm using Instagram. I probably wouldn't put some of the stuff on Instagram because it's more fun. The more fun stuff I put on Instagram, I wouldn't put on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is much more about the business. It's the work-related aspect. So then think about that. If you're looking at B2B, maybe LinkedIn is probably a stronger platform. If it's more Facebook and Instagram in the personal things with people, maybe more that B2C relationship. So do think about the platform from a mindset of the customer as well. Definitely set out goals. You absolutely want to be thinking, okay, how many customers do I want? How many leads do I want from this ad? But actually be realistic as well. Don't think I've got £100, I'm going to get 10,000 people to buy my product. It's probably not going to happen because you've got that competition online with the ads as well. And also think, what do you actually want the ads to do? Are you selling something? Are you trying to build a community? So try and set the engagement levels for the actual ads themselves about what you'd expect to happen. So yeah, and then budget, the $1 million question. How much do you spend? Well, that is the problem with that question is it's a real difficult one because it's very industry specific. It obviously depends on what you're trying to sell or what you're actually trying to achieve with the ads. You've got to think about how much you're willing to spend to get the return you want. And that's really important. So I won't go into the kind of maths of working out conversion rates and kind of cost per acquisitions, but we could talk about that in tomorrow afternoon if anyone wanted to go into a bit more detail. But it's really important for you to get very clear, okay, on how much am I willing to spend, but also be realistic. Don't think, right, my product's worth £10,000, but I'm only willing to spend £10 per lead. It's just not realistic. It would have to be higher than that in terms of getting that kind of value out of the ads. Think about as well time and events. So a lot, and this kind of goes to quite traditional advertising as well. That you want to be thinking with these videos, okay, well, what time of the year? Is this an appropriate time to be promoting the services my business provides? Also consider external events because these things have massive impacts on the cost of ads as well. A couple of examples that I can just, for example, you've got the elections in the States. They drove up advertising within the States because a lot of money went into advertising through political advertising, but it naturally builds up the whole ecosystem goes up with it. And then also you've got social media ad costs went up during lockdown because more people are online for longer, which means they're using the platforms more because obviously they're at home. So that saw an increase in ad costs as well. So just remember that your ads, when you're using ads, you're not in a bubble. Ultimately, it's people using the platform and looking at your ads. So just consider those things. Also then the landing page, make sure it has relevance to the ad. Keep it simple for the user experience. So there's nothing worse than clicking on something, getting to a landing page and having no idea what I've got to do. Check your technical SEO. So really think, is my page speed right? Is there a clear call to action as well on there? Think about just the technical side of your landing page, what you're sending potential customers to, and always set up tracking, which I won't go into detail now, but really make sure if it's on, for example, Facebook, you're setting up your pixel to make sure you've got a clear indication of what actually works. And then finally, the message. So make sure you're creating ads in a style that your customer talks about your services. Remember, it's going on their newsfeed. So how do they talk about your products? How do they talk about your services? Again, this is why this understanding the kind of audience beforehand is so important. But also make sure, does the style of the videos that Matt's talked about, do they match your brand? I mean, if you're a professional, if you want it to be more of a professional video, think about that, or maybe a bit more laid back. And that will obviously come through in the visuals. And then finally as well, it's just something you can do on the social media platforms through the transparency. Have a look at what your competitors' paid content's like. Go onto the Facebook transparency, see what they're doing. You can, because of all the issues that happen with Facebook, they are now allowing you to see the ads your competitors are running, which is great. There's going to be some great useful insight there. So yeah, so again, with that, so again, think about setup considerations. You're about to start a new campaign. Think about your audience, think about the platform, think about what goals do you want these ads to actually achieve. Think about what's a realistic budget for what I'm actually selling or the product or things like that. Think about what time of year, what's happening in the world. Will this impact the cost of things? Consider all those things and also the appropriateness of the ads with that. Think about the quality of your landing page and then obviously finally just make sure your message is on brand and it feels comfortable when you're releasing these video ads. So I'll go through this pretty quickly because I'm conscious of time, but yeah, just in terms of why video, the analogy I use when it comes to video is very much, you can still get conversions and website traffic with other media formats like images and carousels, but you got to, I see it like, I'm a bit of a football fan, so I see it as like almost like a football team that you're leaving your best player on the bench by leaving video out of your social digital marketing strategy, particularly with ads. So you can still win, you can still get conversion, you can still get website traffic, and people do with images and carousels, but you really want to be using video because it's a lot harder to win without video now. Engagement levels are much higher on video. We had a recent campaign me and Matt have been working on, and the video ads generated 5 times more impressions than the image ads, and they reached 4 times as many people with exactly the same budget. So again, that's an example of that they're actually doing this. Social media platforms, as I've said, are optimizing for video content. With the mobile first approach, the platforms are tapping in. If you just look at the major social media players in the last year that have come up, TikTok, entirely video based. Instagram has now launched Reels. So you can watch obviously the videos on Facebook in the playlist. So it's just thinking about, this is where the social platforms are going, because that's where the business itself is going. And finally, just variety of options. You've got so much you can do with video now. As Matt's discussed a little bit in terms of the different styles and the different things you can look at, you've got stories function now. Obviously, LinkedIn and Twitter have even started running that as well. So they're seeing the value of those short clips, those short things. You can do live video. And even if you're doing live video, you can record that, I'm sure you can record that and take that and use that video as well. And then again, ad clips, keep the expectations. The expectations for ad clips are to be really high quality. Now I think that's the difference. And I think that's the difference between just running images and then running high quality ad clips. So think about that. So it's really is video is your star player when it comes to running ads on social media. The engagement levels are much higher generally. The social media platforms themselves are actually optimizing for video. And then you've got so many different options to think about. So yeah. Thank you, Matt. And then finally, this is the ad strategy. So this is really about understanding your customer journey online, which is different to what is on offline, and it's just a different experience. So you want to be making sure you're producing the right videos for the right people at the right time. And you can do this by what Matt has discussed. And I think you really want to break your ad clips, these video ad clips, into the different sections of the kind of marketing, the digital marketing funnel itself. So I won't go into too much detail about funnels because I know that can become a whole different issue in itself. But as you can see, it's the awareness, the value, and conversion. And I've kind of put this into story, knowledge, and convert. So I'll quickly run through what I mean by that in terms of, so the first stage is people might not know who your business is, what you do, who you are. Then that's why you've got to tell your story. You've got to build that brand and raise awareness. And through what Matt has said, you can use this breakup of ad clips to tell that story. You might want to highlight, for example, one of your company values in each video, for example, and then if you've got, say, 5, 10 values, you've got 10 video clips there to talk about you as a business, what makes you tick, what kind of why you do what you do. It's not the sales video, it's not pushing things on people, it's just exposing people that initial time through the video ads. And remember, you don't need every ad clip to push sales. So you can use your ads to build a relationship and kind of a community online. Secondly, once you've kind of built that at that first stage of brand awareness and people start to know you, you then got to try and get them to trust you. And that's the important part, because if I don't trust you, I probably am not going to do business with you in any way. So the second batch of videos is really about showing your knowledge. And you can do this through shorter explainer videos. You could do this through maybe some opinion pieces, or you could even use the videos. So for example, if you're doing a free guide that goes through in quite a lot of detail about a specific issue or something, a specific guide you wanted to promote, well, you could use video ads as a way of promoting that, because then it's much better than just seeing a boring PDF link or something like that on there. So just think about how I can use video to maybe promote other things as well, other formats as well, other things like guides and such things like that. And then finally, it's your convert, which Matt has talked about. It's on the website, but you could also use it through the retargeting, which I'll talk about in a sec. But yeah, your conversion videos, you want to be using them at the end when you think this is a warm audience, and this is the brilliance of social media. So much more sales focused. They're highlighting the pain points. They're really understanding the kind of more direct offers to them now, but that's because you brought them through using the power of video to get to this point online. And then finally, for me, it's long-term approach. You've got to think long-term with ads. The idea I'll just run a 3-week campaign, you really need to think this is now an integral part of your digital marketing strategy, because you can retarget with this so much. So for example, if you've spent the work of doing, say, 20 video clips at the start that are telling your story, and you spend all that time and effort and work to get that point, and then you just stop, that data you've built up, you can then drive to, say, the next stage, which is the knowledge. We're thinking, right, well, for example, 5,000 people who saw the video clips watched more than 75% of the video. That probably tells you they're interested in what you do. That gives you an insight. Then you can retarget the next batch of ads, which are much more focused on maybe promoting a free guide or really adding value to them in a way that's actually going to help. So think about that. You want to continue it because you want to continuously have that data available and using the power of retargeting options. And then use videos in a cyclical fashion. Always have videos going all the time, because one of the great things is the reason why, if you've just got one video, you're very quickly going to run into ad fatigue. People are going to start seeing the video too much. And if they keep seeing it on their news feed, that can actually have a negative impact on your brand, because it becomes a bit annoying. We've all probably seen videos like that. I'm so tired of seeing that same video over and over again on my news feed. This is why the shorter clips, it helps you get away from that, because you've got maybe 24 clips you're now running across these different social media platforms. So it really does stop that from happening as well. And then finally, the point I will make, and Matt's kind of talked about it briefly, but I just think about from this, if you've got one 10-minute long form video and that gets 10,000 views, brilliant. That is fantastic. But if you break that into 20 smaller 30-second ad clips, and then say, for example, each one of those reaches 2,500 people, you've reached 50,000 people. So you've got the same material and you've got 5 times the amount of exposure just by breaking them up into smaller clips. So that's kind of, so that slide really, the video ad strategy, it's thinking it as part of your digital marketing strategy and how social fits into that with video. So you really need to understand the customer journey, let them tell them your story when they at the first stage. Then give them the knowledge, give them the insight, give them the free guide, add the value, and then you can start converting that warm audience and think long term, because ads are an ongoing thing and they're only going to become more integral as part of the social media offering.